Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aubrey Terrazes. I am a marketing professional. I have an agency called Terravine, and I've been working with many brands over the years. I'm also an advanced sommelier. So before getting into marketing, I have worked as a wine buyer through retail, export, restaurants for around a decade, 18 years total in hospitality. So I'm really familiar with talking to customers. I've talked to thousands of customers over the years and gotten a lot of feedback about what people want to hear about wine, how they want to be marketed, as well as testing real strategy with dozens of brands in the United States and Europe, putting their product in front of people, finding the right message, and finding the right strategy. Because ultimately, the wine marketing landscape is unique, and we'll get more into that. So today we have a lot of exciting stuff to cover. It's going to be jam-packed. It is going to be workshop style. So we're going to pause a few times to actually have breakaways where you can work on some of this content, because it's always great to learn all of these tools, but it's my goal for you to actually walk away from this webinar already have taken action and already feeling like you've accomplished something and marketing your brand. So today we're going to cover three major strategies that I've learned that are most impactful for wine brands. We're also going to learn how to properly leverage crowded resources like social media, branding. All of these things are really great. And I feel like a lot of times people feel overwhelmed by them because they're not really sure how to use them. So we're going to talk about strategies to actually make them work for your brand. As I mentioned, we're going to have breakaway moments, so you can actually work live today on some of these tools for your brand. I'll also provide additional resources for you. So a lot of those are going to actually kind of come at the end. I'm going to give you additional resources. So even if you're familiar with some of these strategies, I really encourage you to stay tuned for the entire webinar. It's going to be an hour and 75 minutes. We're going to have some QA time at the end. And I promise you that even if you're already using some of these, you're going to walk away with new tools, tips, strategies, and also new resources that you can take home after the webinar. Okay, so who is this for? This is for winemakers. And I'm sorry for the picture. All stock photos of winemakers are old men, but I'm sure all of you are much younger and sexier than this photo. It's for wine business owners. So if you own a winery, if you own a wine shop, if you have a new app or experience online, this is for you. This is for marketers and sales staff. So if you are a brand rep, if you work for a distributor, if you're a sales rep for a retail shop, this will help you present the ideas in a way that can be really effective to get more people to drink your wine. And of course, this is for sommeliers, bloggers, really anyone in the wine trade that has a personal or professional brand that they're trying to market. Okay, so why is marketing so hard in the wine industry? For starters, it's really crowded. There's around 8,700 wineries in the United States alone, and we're only the fourth biggest producer. So France produces twice as much as the United States. So you can imagine there's just thousands and thousands of wine labels. And in addition to that, there's a lot of consumer confusion. So people can't really tell what's what. And what's more, they're really embarrassed to ask about it. And so they tend to buy off of really silly things like the label or just an experience they had. They're not really sure how to navigate, and they're not really sure how to figure out what is good and what they're going to like or not like. And then finally, there's a lot of friction behind messaging. Unlike fashion or music or art, wine more or less looks the same in the glass. And so it's really hard for people to know if they're going to like it or not before they actually try it. So to really get people to trust your brand, you almost have to get them to try it first, which is why event marketing is sometimes really successful for wineries. But we're going to mostly focus on online strategies, especially in the post-pandemic world, where you're trying to get people to have a relationship with your wine and get them to go out on a limb and try it when they're not really sure if they're going to like it or not. Okay. And this is another thing I hear from a lot of different brands. I don't have any time or money for marketing. Okay, so I want to know who can relate to this. So I actually put a survey in here. But if that's you or not you, and we're going to see how everyone feels about that. Okay. Yeah, that's for a lot of people. And that's very normal. It's very confusing. I think there's a lot of there's a trust issue with agencies. It seems like you have to spend so much money. This is a passion-driven thing. And again, I'm sorry, the stock photos of winemakers are old men. But this guy looks really frustrated. He's just doing his thing. He's passionate. Maybe you're a really small brand and it doesn't feel like you have a huge budget. So I want to let you know that all the tools that we are working on today are things that you can do on any budget. And when you're systematic about it, just a few hours a week, they can make a really big impact on your brand. Okay. So first strategy here, audience identification. So this is where I always like to start. And for a lot of people, they feel like they already know what their audience is. This is, again, stay tuned. We have different tools here. The reason why this is so important is because if all wineries sound, we all kind of have this, we see a lot of different messages that are very similar. Maybe sustainable farming, terroir-driven, small production, and it's really hard to figure out how to stand out. So you have to tie in other things, get away from the features of your brand and focus more on a more emotional level that will really resonate with your audience. And how do you know what's going to resonate with your audience until you really know who that audience is? So we can all take a guess about who that might be. Millennials, older, an older, wealthier generation. People live in America, people live in France, whatever it is. But ultimately, I suggest starting with what you're trying to solve and then going out and building other layers to create a deeper understanding of your customer. So sort of like an actor who's researching a role, they're going to memorize the lines, they're going to know what the character is about, but they also are going to create this backstory. So that way there's a lot more depth and communication with that role. So you kind of have to be an actor here. Okay, so the first step here is asking yourself, what problem am I solving? And that might be really obvious for you. Maybe this is something you've thought about. For wine, I think this is a complex one. Oftentimes in marketing, we refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's on here, starting with physiological, so our baseline needs. Before we can start thinking about anything above it, we need to focus on having oxygen and shelter, food, sleep. And then once that's taken care of, then we can move on to more safety. So, safety of the body, feeling comforted, being around family, our health is good. We, maybe have our space outside of just shelter. We actually have something that feels more like home. Love and belonging. So I think the first two are maybe a little bit less relevant for wine. You could argue that it is a food, we need that. But really, I think that the third layer is kind of where it starts to get interesting for wine. Love and belonging. Wine is a very social product. So maybe this is what your brand is really about, is being convivial, bringing people together, having something that's easy and accessible, creating memories. And then there's esteem. So this is getting into achievement, respect, status symbols. This is also, I think, very relevant for the wine industry, especially for more luxury products. A lot of times, we know there are so many markets where people don't even care what's in the bottle. They just want that really nice label. Or if you think about wine collectors that never drink the wine and they're just passing it around to just have this label. This is really where this is touching. And then finally, self-actualization, which I think is really interesting as well, because if you are truly passionate about wine, I think you can connect here, because it makes you think about life, makes you kind of explore the glass, what's in it, the relationship with food and wine, the relationship with earth and man. And so you can really look at the world through the lens of wine in so many different ways. So this would be really appropriate for a very impact-driven brand. For example, maybe someone that is trying to create socioeconomic equality through a co-op, or sustainable farming, anything like that would really apply here. So we're actually going to have a little breakaway session here. Just a couple of minutes. I'm going to turn off the screen, give you space to think, grab a pen and paper, and I want you to think, what problem am I solving? And it's important that you focus on your main point here. I'm sure that you have a lot of different features. You know, this is great wine, great conversation, but here I want you to focus on the main mission of your brand. So I'm going to time it, 2 minutes. I should have gotten a countdown clock, but I'll let you know when you're halfway. All right? Enjoy. Okay, that is 2 minutes, everybody. So hope you had some good learnings from there. Going over your different place on this hierarchy of needs. Let's move on. So first, you have to think about what problem am I solving? The next thing is, how am I different? And again, there are so many buzzwords in the wine industry. So think about, what I like to do here is a comparison. Not that we're comparing ourselves to others, but it is really important is to identify your competitors or other brands that you really admire and figure out how your messaging is unique. And so this is when we really start to create some personality around the brand. And that is super, super important because, as I said, people, I mean, I've dealt with thousands of customers who are buying wine, and as much as I want to be a wine geek and tell them about soil types and low yields and all of this other stuff, they really just want to hear the story. They want to hear that this guy was super into the Beatles and has his tasting room. It's all about this and that. They want to hear that this is a family, an American family that like moved to France and has something special going on. It's very it's a small domain. And the more, if you can give people that story, it makes it so much easier for people to sell your brand as well. So it's not just about you selling your wine. It also makes it easier for reps, sommeliers, retail to tell your story, because that's really what people want to hear. They just want to hear something that's different. So I do have an exercise for this as well. And it's very simple. It's something you can do on a piece of paper. Just draw a few columns and rows. And it's really just put your brand and, a couple of competitors. I'm sure you know who those are. And then list your brand promises. So again, that could be terroir driven, small production, organic. And maybe the last one is the proprietor is really into horses. That doesn't seem important, but that's the thing that differentiates you, because these other competitors might be like, okay, yeah, they're also organic. They all say they're terroir driven, but what's my story? And this is the thing that's going to separate you from your competitors. And as silly as it might seem, you want to create this story, this unique piece, and really share that with people. And it's true that maybe not everyone is into horses. That's okay. But it's a story they can tell, they can relate to, and people that are into it are really going to be your tribe, and they're going to connect with you. The biggest problem that most people do in marketing is, again, trying to be everything to everyone, when instead you should just try to create really, really loyal base around a small community. So we're going to have another breakout session here. These are back to back. We're going to have another space, just one more breakout session today. But I think that these are such important exercises for you to do right off the bat. So we'll also give you 2 minutes again here just to think about it. Again, I know that goes by really fast, but I just want you to feel like you started working on your growth right away during this webinar today. So I'm going to pause my video again so that way you're not distracted by my face. I'm going to put on some background music and just have at it. I'll let you know when you're halfway. All right, 2 minutes is on. Halfway. All right, everybody, that was 2 minutes. If you didn't have time to wrap up what you were doing, definitely revisit this later after we're offline today. So there is a third piece of the puzzle here that I wanted to share with you. And there's a lot of we can do here. But the last thing is thinking about how you can build rapport and create culture. So the first 2 exercises really play into this. But people want to feel like they're with their people. And again, you're not going to be the right fit for everybody, and that's totally okay. I think that part of the reason why impact-driven brands do so well is because they really attract that type of people, and they feel like they're making a difference. And so that's something you can think about is, what problem am I solving? Maybe that's at that high level. But even if you're not, negative carbon footprint or whatever, still just saying like, I'm a really easy wine a lot of people can get around with. It's a wine that people can have with their grandma, with their cousin, and it's enjoyable. That's great. And then layering in that brand recognition, saying, like, we're music lovers, we're a family, we're different because of X, Y, or Z. That's what's going to help build that culture around your brand. And there will be some people that join even though they don't directly identify with that. And again, that plays into storytelling. But then the people that do, your brand persona, they're going to be so loyal to you because they feel like they're your people. And so for this, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit. And instead of doing those breakaway sessions, I'm going to screen share. and show you a couple of tools that I really like to do to actually learn more about my customer. And so what I can tell you as a marketer is that over and over again, humans are terrible at predicting what is going to work and who their customer is. You should have a plan when you launch out, but it's good to research some of this as well, because then it helps you create your brand voice. So you know what your brand message is, that's what problem you're solving, and you know how you're different, that's your brand message as well. And now we're talking really about your brand voice. So who are you talking to on a deeper level? So not just, like I think that it's a millennial from California, but actually getting to understand their interests and their needs and their behaviors too. So my first tool is Google Analytics. I don't think it's an unfamiliar tool, but if you do not have this installed on your website, do prioritize this. The sooner you prioritize this, as well as a Facebook pixel, which we're not talking about today, but as a note, you start building this data from people that have visited your website that can be so insightful for brand decisions. So you're making those decisions off of data instead of just off of feeling. Because like I said, instincts are good, but in general for marketing, data performs much better. And that's something that honestly, most website hosts have a really easy integration for Google Analytics. And if that's just not your space, your developer can do it in half an hour. So no big deal. Okay, so let me screen share here. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen, and I know someone will text me if they can't. So this is just Teravine's website. It doesn't have a huge amount of traffic, but you do need some traffic to get this data. And the other thing too is that for demographic analysis, that is something you have to turn on. It will actually prompt you when you go under audience. So if it's not there yet, that's something you can turn on, and it's no big deal. So from your Google Analytics profile, if you go under demographics, so this is the overview is interesting. It does tell you a little bit about gender and age, and I think there's something relevant there. Mine is, pretty much 50-50, so I'm not seeing too much. Google doesn't necessarily have a perfect tracking for age, because when I did look deeper at this, it did not track all of the visitors. So I'm seeing 25 to 34, but that was only for about 20% of my visitors. So this is definitely interesting, and it's definitely good to know. But I think where it really gets juicy is if you go under interests and affinity categories, and then it tells you what other things your people are interested in. For example, I work with this brand Rapport that is a wine saver, and we found out that their number one affinity interest, was sports and fitness, which is very unique for a wine brand because, food and dining, that's pretty normal for a wine brand, but sports and fitness. And through that, we understood that moderation of alcohol was really important for their customer. And so we actually ended up getting them a piece in Inside Hook, which is a publication with over 1 million monthly visitors, about how you can train for Ironman and train, as an athlete while moderating alcohol and still enjoying a glass of wine using a Rapport to save it. So it's such an interesting opportunity that we would have missed if we weren't looking at this data. And so this is just a snapshot of Teravine. And some of it's obvious, like I said, like food and dining, of course, that's normal for wine people. But then we also look at other things. Okay, this green living is really interesting to me because I see that one of the main interests for my visitors is green living, which means that I do have very, sustainable minded people coming to my site. And so we're going to talk more about social media in the next section of the webinar. But, I can think about the type of content that I want to create and the type of content both on my website, social media, ads, anything that's going to resonate and differentiate me from my competitors. I can think about how this isn't something that's important for us, sustainability. And that's something that I can also talk more about to attract more like-minded people. Do-it-yourselfers, that also could be interesting, because again, we do a lot of content for people that might be interested in doing some marketing on their own. So this is just a little bit of insight, and I think it can be really interesting for you to create this content that resonates with your customers on a deeper level, having content that's like, okay, this person, this brand gets me, I identify with it. Even down to pet lovers, it's like pictures of dogs instead of just pictures of vines could be really unique. Get back to my presentation. Oh, left too soon. Okay, I did also want to show you page views and exits. I think that's really important for consumer behavior. Okay. So going under behavior, site content, and this tells you which pages people come in, which pages people leave. And that can be really interesting, especially if you have something like a blog or, a visit us section if you're a winery or a restaurant, something like that, and seeing where people come in, because that also gives you a little bit of peek into what people are interested in looking at for your brand. The exit pages when people left, and some of it won't tell you too much. If someone registered for something and then they said thank you and left, that's obvious. But you could also see, okay, what of my content do I need to maybe work on as well? Like, where are people leaving? So I think that's really helpful for you to look at as a brand. Google Analytics in general is really, really spot on for you making data-driven decisions about your brand. There's a lot more we can say, but we only have an hour and 75 minutes, something like that. So outside of that tool, there's a more proactive tool that you can do, customer surveys. And that honestly might be even more valuable, is to actually talk, make a list of your 10, even 50 best customers, depending on how big your brand is, and talk to them, figure out what makes their decision. So these are a couple of example questions that you could ask to your customer base. What was the major reason why you bought from us versus someone else? What more features would you like to see? And in general, I suggest if you can, this is great to do as a survey. If you can talk to them on the phone, even better. If you have a personal email dialogue with them, that's great, because you really get a picture, this actual visual identity and feeling for who you're talking to, and that really helps define your brand voice. Because if you're talking to Kelly, a 29-year-old yoga instructor from LA, it's going to be very different than Michael, the 57-year-old data analysis dude from Chicago. Like, those are different worlds. You're going to speak differently to them, just like you speak differently to your friend than you would to your grandmother. And that can help your online identity, because you want to be able to personify yourself online. That's what this is all about. So we don't have another breakaway session just yet, but I do have some homework for you. So using your toolkit, and again, I'm going to send you this information as well. So looking at your customer surveys, your Google Analytics, if you have that set up. If you don't have it set up, it's not going to be useful just yet, but you should get that set up, as well as those questions we answered during the breakaway sessions. Start to create a customer persona. So actually think of that demographic. And I think it is helpful when you actually think of a person that you're talking to. So this was an example. Ashley from Austin, Texas, in her 30s. She's an administrative assistant. She makes median income. She loves traveling. She loves eating. Think of some affinity brands that she might be into as well. This might be someone that's really into Trader Joe's. It's really into Virgin Airlines, Southwest Airlines. She wants to have fun, And so she's less concerned. She's more on that level 3 of the hierarchy of needs. Like she just wants to have a good time with her gals. And so she is looking for just a really approachable wine brand, something fun, enjoyable, to be specific to your brand. This is something for you to work on later. That really will help you tighten up your voice, as well as choosing 3 to 5 words that help describe your brand voice. So things like bold, energetic, mysterious, adventurous, whatever that may be. It's going to be specific to you and to the problem you're solving. But these are some things that you can take away and do on your own. Okay. So I did promise 3 strategies today. We're on to strategy number 2, social media, but specifically for connection. Social media is not a secret, obviously. I'm sure everyone here is on it. And I think the thing that a lot of brands struggle with is learning how to use it. They're on it, they know they have to be on it, but they're just not really feeling a lot of results from it. It's kind of hard to measure. And it just feels like an afterthought. And I, for me, myself too, it's the easiest thing to put off because it's hard to measure straight up front. It's not the type of work where you go in and you're selling wine to a customer. You're not pruning the vineyards. It's this very, sort of hypothetical situation where you can meet people online. And I think that's just the thing is that when it's an afterthought, you just sort of post. And you're not consistent, and then people aren't really engaging with you, and so it does feel like a miss. So the biggest things you can do to get over that hurdle, you can be consistent with your brand online. So that means actually planning ahead and consistently posting, but it also means showing brand consistency on your post. And it's all of that work we did on the first strategy really plays in here. Because you want to be able to consistently show what you're about so people can resonate with you. And showing, not telling. So social media is not the place to sell your brand. It's the place for people to understand who you are. It's just an entry point. You should not expect big conversions off of here. But this part of the puzzle is overcoming that consumer confusion. Because again, people have so many brands they need to choose from. And so if they saw this brand online that's engaging with them frequently and they have a relationship with already, and then they go to the shop, or, if they're actually a wine buyer and then they go and they're talking to someone, they're going to remember that and it's going to stand out for them more than something that just passed through on a wine shelf. That label might not stand out, but this relationship you make on Instagram really will. Okay, so how do we solve these problems? Brand consistency. So this is a strategy to plan your content, and I'll tell you exactly how we do it. So first is to research trending topics. I typically plan content about a month ahead, and so next week we'll be planning for the month of June. And if that's too much, you can do 2 weeks at a time. Really, I would say it takes this might take you 5 hours depending on how much you get into the design aspect and the copy aspect. We easily spend, I think just at this baseline level, you can find good results with just spending a couple hours a week on social media. And you can have great results if you spend 10 hours a week on social media, but I know that's not accessible for everybody. That might be more on like an agency level where someone's like doing reels, posting stories, engaging constantly. We'll get more into engagement in a moment. So research trending topics. So for the month of June, I'd look at Father's Day. I'd look at summer's coming up. I'd look at rosé season, restaurants opening back up. And then I create a skeleton. And so I go through the calendar or a spreadsheet and I say, okay, the first week of June, let's say I'm doing 3 posts. On this day, I'm going to talk about restaurants opening back up. This day, I'll talk about barbecue pairings. This day, I will talk about, depending on your brand, maybe I'm talking about canned wine and how that plays into sustainability. And then after that, I draft copy for all of those posts for the month. And so I go through, like now that I've kind of themed out my posts, I actually flush them out, and I include hashtags and do some hashtag research to see what's relevant for my brand. Do try to use 30 on Instagram. That's the maximum. It won't hurt you. Throw them in a little bit for Instagram, or I'm sorry, for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, but you don't need to use as many there, just a few. And then finally, find images. So obviously, it's great if you have a designer. That's amazing. It's great if you have a professional photographer. But what I've actually found is that it's less important to have super curated, beautiful content. And it's more important that you just have a real story, especially now at this level. And I'm talking a lot about Instagram because that's where I think a lot of the social media message is nowadays. People actually really just want to feel something authentic from a brand. And so if you're sending out a consistent, authentic message, and if you're engaging with them, they're going to engage back. So it doesn't have to be a perfect picture every time. It's great if you can do that, but don't stress or feel like your content is good enough if you can't have a professional photographer. Also, don't feel like you have to put a picture every time. You can totally have just a really nice quote. You know, if you do have a designer, you can have them create some basic templates that you can just put some copy over with a nice quote or idea. It's a good place to start, just to be consistent, because I do think that having a few posts a week is going to make a big difference in your brand if you're not doing it already. And then finally, review them to make sure there aren't any typos and schedule it. I love Buffer. I've worked with Hootsuite and Later as well as scheduling tools. There aren't a lot of tools for scheduling Instagram stories, but Instagram stories can make a big difference in your engagement. So schedule your posts, but keep in mind stories, reels, things like that. Okay, engagement. I have this little clock right here because it's something you should just do for 15 minutes a day. You know, when you first wake up, after your lunch break, whenever's good for you. And this is what social media is about, and I think we've gotten so far away from this. The reason why so many people don't feel like their social media is working is because they're not socializing on it. And it can feel overwhelming because there's not a lot of strategy on it. So when I tell you the strategy on it, so the first thing to do is to find your people. So we go back to that competitor analysis, and you can go to competitors, especially the big following, and look to see who's following them, or look up major hashtags and see who's engaging with that content, and then go and start following them and actually start making friends. Just, you know, and say positive things about their content, send them a message, comment, like, whatever. I do think direct messages make a bigger difference than a likes get kind of lost, especially for someone with a bigger following. But also keep in mind, this isn't just about people with 10,000 followers or more. This is about reaching out to real people that are going to like your brand and just creating friends. And the thing is to be consistent with that as well. So after, don't just send one comment onto ether, follow them and truly engage with them, you know, make friends. Because when they see your name a lot, they're going to remember you. They're not going to come back. You're going to stand out a lot in the crowd and get over that consumer confusion because they'll start to see your story. So much about social media is showing, again, not telling. And so when they can see what you're about, they're going to resonate with that more, because instead of just being a random red liquid in a glass, they're going to see your family, your vines, your story, your interests, and hopefully resonate with those. Okay. Last breakout session of the day. So in these next few minutes, I'm going to encourage you, hopefully have a phone nearby, and go ahead and find one competitor account. Go into their account, especially, it doesn't have to be always a competitor. Maybe it's a brand that you think is similar to yours. You don't have to use competitor if that's an ugly word for you. And then go into their followers and actually go through and follow through new people. Sometimes you'll have to request it. It's fine. They'll have to approve you, whatever you want. And then after that, choose one person and send them a direct message with an honest, positive comment. Or if you want to get in their DMs, you can also respond to an Instagram story they have online. So when I turn on there are creative techno music, and turn off my camera, give you 2 minutes. It's a lot to do in 2 minutes, but I think that you're gonna do great. Okay, 2 minutes is on. Halfway. Okay, everybody, that was 2 minutes. And definitely this is a practice you can do every day. Just for a little bit of time makes a big difference. Okay, our last strategy is influence marketing. And this is about overcoming that crowded space. It's about standing out. And for me, I've done a lot of influence marketing, and I know all of the pushbacks from it. People, kind of sometimes get, they kind of scoff at influencer marketing. They feel like it's silly, or they feel like they've done it and didn't see anything from it. So the first thing I want to say is this is about your brand awareness. This is almost traditional advertising. This is like your billboard. You're not going to be spoiled like you are with a Google ad where you can see, okay, I spent this much, I had this many clicks, I had this many conversions, this is how many sales I got from how much I spent. This is about people starting to trust your brand and about really standing out, because there are so many labels for wine. I mean, people are 72% more likely to buy from a friend, an influencer, someone they trust, than a regular brand. Consumers are different now, and they really want that extra layer of trust that they could have past just a traditional advertisement. And what's more is they need to see a brand a lot. 3 to 7 times is one study. I've also seen a study that says 16 times before they convert. And even for myself, as someone that is, a wine expert, I've been to Hawaii. I had total doubts about Hawaiian wine. I didn't think it was possible. But recently, some people that I engage with online, and I trust their palate, I saw a couple of different posts about Maui wine, which is a brand, and that changed my mind. I was like, okay, I would totally try that when the occasion comes up now. And so it's not something you might measure right now, but trust me, it does make a big difference because people remember you. But it's all about sort of that volume and that consistency. So this is PR. That's really what it is. It's public relations, and it's discounted. Public relations costs thousands of dollars a month, and you can do Instagram marketing just for some product exchanges or for a few $100. But I'll tell you why a lot of people aren't successful with it. The first thing is a lot of people will just randomly send it out to a random influencer with 50,000 followers, and that's fine. But really, it's about that consistency of seeing it often. So instead of just having one influencer, even if they have a big following, focus on a niche. So focus on wine niche, lifestyle, foodies, all at one time, because a lot of them are going to share followers. They're not all going to have the exact same. So you don't want to have just two people. You want to have, numerous people that are talking about your brand online, and then focus for about a month. And then those people will see your brand consistently during that time. You also want to make sure that the influencers are right fit for your market. Just because they have 50,000 followers does not mean they're a good fit. So it gets back into that brand persona. So, Ashley from Austin that's in her 30s and has 100,000 followers, that's amazing. But, maybe she's 30, she's all about those fun, young brands. And maybe you're someone that has a cult wine brand that is $100 a bottle. And so that's not going to be the right market fit. It'd be better for you to choose someone, maybe Michaela, that has 3,000 followers, but she's always posting about cult wine brands and she's really into that niche. And so her followers are going to identify with that and trust that. And it's going to be a better fit for your brand. So I'm going to share the secrets here to go through step by step how to have an effective influencer marketing strategy. I've done this a lot. I deal with influencers all the time. And as much doubt as there and is in the world, I think this is extremely effective about getting your brand out there. And what's more is creating that brand credibility. This is what this is about, is standing out, because people don't trust brands. They all look the same. And so this is like giving people that trust that it's valuable and interesting. So the first thing to do is to create a list of influencers that you'd like to work with. So thinking about the type of person that's right for your brand, I would suggest starting at least with 20 to 50. You can do 300, whatever it is, whatever your ambitions and support entail. But again, I'm trying to focus on something that anyone can do. So this is, I think, very manageable for a team of any size. Next is thinking about your offer. So many influencers will post for product or for an experience. But keep in mind that creating content does take a lot of time. And I think this is where a lot of the pushback comes from, is when an influencer asks for $400 for a post and a story. And again, totally fine if that's not your budget. Plenty of influencers will post just for product. But just to give you an idea of how much time a lot of the best influencers will actually research your product. They'll try it. They're going to choose a setting that's complementary with your brand. They're going to base their outfit around your brand. They're going to do their hair and makeup. They're going to hire a professional photographer. And what's more is, if you agree to be able to use their content ahead of time, paying someone $200 for a post is still cheaper than you hiring a professional photographer and a model. So this is content you can use on your social media, your website, whatever that might be, as long as, again, it's agreed with the influencer, because some people will have the rights to their content. So it depends on every person's situation. That's something that you can negotiate in your offer and your agreement. But don't underestimate the amount of time these women, and I say women because influencers is 95% women, do put a lot of thought into this. And some of them will most of them go above and beyond if they're good. They'll write a blog post about it, even if they were just contracted to do an Instagram post. The next is to reach out to that list. Do you keep track of that interaction? When you reached out to them, what they said, I suggest just, a Google Sheet is perfect, saying the date you reached out, to make sure it doesn't get lost in the ether. See who you've already reached out to. Try to get them via email. Most of, again, true people that are trying to work with brands will have their email on their profile, easily accessible. If not, people will generally respond to direct messages. If they agree, do have an agreement prepared. So this can just be a Google Doc, one sheet, but it's super, super good as a brand to have your talking points prepared ahead of time. So that way it's consistent when people are talking about your brand online. The brand the expectations are really clear. You say, I want a post and a story. I want you to talk about these 3 points. You know, what we talked about in step 1 is saying, this is what I do. This is what's special for me, da, 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 da. And make sure that they agree to that. And then follow up with them after you've sent the product. This is a very key step that a lot of people miss, is making sure, especially after you sent them a product or had invited them to try your service, your brand, whatever, that they actually post about it and it doesn't get lost. Generally speaking, if it's a paid post, it will take about 2 weeks, maybe a month for unpaid. That varies. So just it varies with influencer. And that's something that you can also talk about in your agreement. If someone doesn't post, there is a right way to approach it, because sometimes things happen. They didn't get the product. Maybe someone on your team forgot to deliver it. Maybe something really awful happened in their life. So the best thing to do is just to follow up and say, hey, you know, looking forward to seeing your post. Just want to make sure you got the product, and offer feedback. If someone doesn't like what you're offering, it's better just to get the feedback and not create any friction. Thank them for the feedback. Your brand's not going to be right for everybody. And, you know, they still have to protect their brand as well and post about something that they connect with. So accept the feedback. It's a great learning experience either way. Next, do you track the engagements and posts? Again, this is content. I think some of the thing that a lot of brands overlook is this is content that you can use. This is super valuable to create a great looking social media page, to create a great looking website, ads, whatever that is. So if they agree to use the content, then to keep track of that, keep track of the engagement. It's not always about the amount of likes they get, but also the amount of likes and comments they get divided by their followers is the engagement rate. 1% is actually considered good on Instagram. So if they do better than that, then it's even better for you. And I do talk a lot about Instagram. These strategies do work on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, any other platform. And then just if someone did really great so for me, when I work with brands, after we do maybe an outreach and we have 50 influencers post, and there's 5 to 10 that did an amazing job, they're perfectly on brand, they get it, then we will often invite them back to do ongoing content. It's good for us because we love what they do. They're continuing to create this consistent message for their followers that will see our brand over and over and over again. And it's good for them too, because they have this consistent brand relationship. So that's paid or through product, it will vary with influencer, but a lot of people are really into a continual relationship. So that's what a success with influencer marketing looks like. Okay, so as I said, we covered a lot today. And there's so much more to learn and to talk about. These were just 3 strategies, very accessible things you can do on low budget, low time, that are very impactful for any wine brand. If you want a little bit more, so we are continuing to create more content, and we're actually launching a course very soon, within a few weeks, if not the end of the month, then early June. So in a few weeks from now, where you can learn extra strategies, SEO, Google Ads, the right way to do event marketing. So again, event marketing is familiar, but also getting into things like the right way to do influencer marketing, how to really make this work for your brand. Learn how to use your time and budget. And you will also give you extra tools like SEO checklists for your website, prepared copy templates for social media, landing page templates to really make sure your website flow helps convert to visitors or sales or just engagement, whatever that is for you. And so it'll be 15 video lessons. It'll be about 5 hours of content. And you'll also get, again, those tools, that prepared content, and you'll have lifetime access. So this is the first time we're doing it. So you're in a good position because Anything we add or edit, you're going to have access to in the future. And we're offering it for $199 for this first time if you register before we launch. And it'll actually be free because, again, we really actually do want to help small brands. We know that an agency isn't available for everybody. For us to be upfront, it's helpful for us to have those testimonials when we're launching this. And so if you finish it in 30 days, because we absolutely want you to finish it and leave a testimonial, then we'll refund it. And I'm serious about that. You have me on video, so that's your agreement. So I will email everyone here with those templates and with the link. They can sign up. And again, it's free if you finish it in 30 days. And if not, I think it's still a pretty low commitment. But I'm trying to also help incentivize you because, again, everyone always says this thing, I don't have time or money for marketing. And I want to get past that because I do think that it's so important. There's this book called The Art of War, or the War on Art, actually, it's the other way around, by Stephen Pressfield. Not The Art of War, but The War on Art. And that's about whenever you're creating something, whether that's a business or writing or creative project, we feel this thing called resistance. And we know that we should be doing this, but there's this other thing that just stops us, procrastination. And so having that deadline, I think, will really help you to take action, just like we took action today together. It's just a few members of the team. And we all have wine, food backgrounds, wine, food, lifestyle, travel. I have 18 years experience myself. And so beyond just selling wine literally on the floor at retail shops and as a sommelier, I've been working for about 4.5 years specifically in wine marketing with dozens of brands, from Wines of California, like as the brand Wines of California, Wines of Bordeaux, specific wineries. And I've tested these strategies, and I just want to make it easier for everyone to learn how to market wine. So it's just to recap. SEO, Google Ads, event marketing, 15 hours, prepared templates. That makes it so easy. Like, social media is already hard. It'll make it easier. Worksheets for you to go deeper into your brand and lifetime access. And again, I think it's a great price. We just want to make it easy for everybody. Okay, so thank you. That wraps up the more instructional part of the webinar. We do have a little bit of time for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, we'll open it up.